Hey friends, welcome back to more Reddit stories about entitled people, crazy people, and everything in between. Hope you're all doing awesome today, and let's jump right into it. Cost-ignorant landlord over 50K. This story is from a while back when I was in college, which was situated in a rather large city, so rent was not very cheap and landlords thought they could cut corners. Unlike many of the buildings in the area, the room I rented was within a wooden house. When I toured the house, nothing stood out as unusual. The room was small but cozy. There were rather large common rooms and the roommates seemed nice, one of whom was the landlord's daughter. Another plus was that they were okay with me bringing my cat and not putting down an obnoxious deposit. Cut to 2 weeks later. I moved into the room and everything seems fine, except my allergies begin to act up. I figured this was just due to allergy season being in full swing, despite not usually having allergies act up. 1 month in and my allergies are worse, and I start to notice small things around the house that seem to just be MacGyvered. For example, sink piping is duct taped, and the bathtub had a crack, which seemed to be glued together. At 1.5 months, allergies are again worse, and my cat begins acting really weird. They start running into things, acting confused, and having what looks like muscle twitching. I took her into the vet and was told that they believe she's ingested a large amount of mold. Dr. Google confirmed that this is a possibility, given her symptoms, and fully explains how I've been feeling. I end up asking my friend to watch my cat for a couple days while I look for the source of mold in the house. Remembering the weird handy jobs performed in the bathroom, I removed the little piece of wood that covered the area between the bathtub and ground. It was elevated on some plastic feet, only to find it covered in fuzzy black growth. I immediately replaced the wood, which had growth on the back side of it too, and checked under the sink. It looked like there was old water damage on the bottom of the cabinet, but no mold. That is, until I shone a light into a small hole cut out in the back of the cabinet. Again, the entire area that I could see in that hole was covered in black fuzz. I don't know if it was psychological, but I ended up getting watery eyes and sneezing a bunch while on the hunt for mold. I immediately showed my roommate, who then called her dad about the mold. The dad essentially said it's nothing serious and he'll get to it when he has time. Well, 1 week later and he's done nothing about it. Wanting to bring my cat back, I called to ask him for an update, and he said that he consulted a professional who said it didn't sound like mold and that I should just keep it covered. I was pissed, but this being my first rental, I had no idea how to handle it, and for as nice as the landlord's kid was, she really didn't try to help persuade him. After some research, I found that in my area, mold is a hazard that landlords are required to take care of. While this wasn't stated in my contract, it was a contractual obligation he had. I called the landlord with this information and told him that I'll be withholding my rent until he sends someone to look at the issue. He flat out laughed and said I can't do that and that he wouldn't allow me to break my lease early. I was pissed and too nervous to bring my cat back into the house. After reviewing some more local codes, I decided that instead of withholding rent, I would report the issue to the municipality in hopes of them taking action. Within 72 hours, they sent an inspector out to not only check the areas I mentioned finding mold in, but also doing a full inspection of the home. They spent at least 2 hours walking around the interior and exterior, looking under every appliance and into any accessible space. After the review was done, they told me that the mold damage was far more extensive than I thought. Essentially, the entire house had become infested due to moist conditions and poor ventilation. He said that this would require extensive work, and that I would not be able to stay in my room during this time. But that's not all. The inspector also found over a dozen code and permit violations, each of which would have to be remedied, or else a huge fine would be levied. The inspector sent a letter detailing his findings to the landlord, and I got an angry call with him screaming about how I shouldn't have gotten them involved, and how he was actually planning on coming out that weekend. I was too timid to boast about this win, but I did state that per the inspector's findings, I will be moving out, as I am legally allowed to break the lease if conditions are unlivable. He said I'm not allowed to, and I told him to take me to court in that case. I moved all my stuff out that day with some help from friends, and crashed with a friend watching my cat during this ordeal. I was able to get a room in a much nicer house rather quickly, and kept in contact with one of the other roommates from the previous home. Apparently, the landlord tried to rent out my room again, and didn't take the inspector's letter seriously. Even the part that stated they have, I believe it was 1 month, to take care of all the code and permit violations before they would be fined daily per violation, some amounting to over $1,000 per day. Things got real for him after about 5 weeks, when he got multiple letters from the municipality detailing all of his fines, and how the rates will go up if he continues to ignore them. Last I heard, he scrambled to respond to correct all the violations, but not before his fines amounted to $50,000, and he was forced to have all the tenants move out. I noticed the house for sale a few months later. Sweet justice. In an attempt to save a few bucks, it ends up costing him a small fortune. And it wasn't even just his tenants that he was putting in danger by choosing to ignore the mold, but also his daughter that was living there too. What a great person. Am I the a-hole for ditching my girlfriend at a 5K because I wanted a better time? My girlfriend, a 31-year-old female, and I, a 36-year-old male, have been together for about 2 years now. We live together. About 9 months ago, I picked up running as a hobby, and I have since grown quite fond of it. I currently run an average of 25 miles a week. A few months ago, I decided I wanted to try a 5K or a 10K, and after some Google searching, found a 5K in my city that looked fun. I registered for it, paid the fee, and decided to start training specifically for it. I mentioned it in passing to my girlfriend that night, and she asked if she could come too. I was psyched about the idea of running a 5K with her and said yes, but warned her that she would probably want to start training because I was going for a sub 27-minute time, which might be tough for a complete beginner. She said she would like to train with me, which again sounded fun. The next morning I woke up at 5 a.m. for my run as I usually do. But my girlfriend was not up for it and told me she'd go later. This continued for a week, and then 2 weeks, and finally I managed to get her up once for a run. She was miserable the entire time, and I basically didn't get any exercise. Last Friday, the day before the race, I asked if she was really up for it. She insisted she was. She then told me that she would just skip gallop it, like she used to do with her mile runs in middle school. I asked her to demonstrate what a skip gallop was, and she showed me this bizarre sidestepping gallop, as if she had casts on her legs. I told her it seemed like a really inefficient way to run, but she insisted it always worked for her. Saturday was the day of the race, and right out of the gate she utilized her skip gallop strategy. 2 minutes in, I realized that she was already completely gassed. She started asking me to wait so we could walk together. I apologized, told her I loved her, and left her behind to finish the race. I ended up with the time of 26:43, beating my goal. After the race, I tried calling her, but she wouldn't pick up. When I made my way back to the car, I realized she had left me. I took an Uber home, and right when I walked in the door, I was met with cry shrieking about how I ditched her. I tried to calm her down and explain that she kind of brought it on herself, but she was not interested whatsoever. Yesterday, she gave me the silent treatment all day. Do I deserve what I'm getting here? Honestly, this is all on her. She chose to be a part of it, which on its own is fine since OP said he was happy to have her join him. But she refused to do much of any training, and she went into it knowing that OP had a set goal, and that goal was what he intended on accomplishing. So for her to get mad when OP decides to not give up on his goal is honestly a bit selfish. She knew what she was getting into. And all that aside, I also find it pretty amusing that she thought her weird method of running would actually work out. I mean, there's a reason us humans run the way we do. It's the most efficient way to do it. If there was another form of running that worked better, we would have figured it out by now. So if normal running already wears you out, there's no cheat that's going to make it easier. But I would still love to see what that so-called skip gallop looks like. Am I the a-hole for calling CPS on my neighbor? I, a 23-year-old female, and my fiancé, a 24-year-old male, have been living in our neighborhood for about 3 years now. And as nice as our place is, we have never gotten along with our neighbor. She lives with her 2 kids right next to us, and has always been snotty since we met her. It was never something we paid too much attention to since we got a good deal on the house. After a while, I started to notice she didn't just act that way with us, but with her children as well. She has a teenager and a little one. They're the sweetest kids I've ever met. The little one regularly leaves small flowers on our porch, and the older one talks to my fiancé when we are outside. Though I thought the way she talked to her kids was quite rude, I chalked it up to her being a strict-ass parent, and since my mother was the same way, I figured all was well. However, on Christmas Eve, me and my fiance got home very late, around 1:30 a.m. from a Christmas party. And as we were going inside, I heard what sounded like someone snoring, but figured I was so tired I was hearing things. But then my fiance turned around and seemed like he heard it as well. After talking a while, we noticed our neighbor's oldest, laying on our porch bench in nothing but a hoodie and sweatpants. I asked him why he was here, and if he was okay, and he proceeded to tell me that his mom kicked him out of the house for not having his bed made or the dishes done, and told him to, quote, think about what he had done. I live in Michigan and it is cold as hell here, especially at night, so I did what any logical person should do and called CPS. Now my neighbor came knocking at my door this morning because I guess her oldest told her I called CPS. She is calling me a monster for trying to get her kids taken away on Christmas, and that I should be ashamed of myself. I don't think I did anything wrong, but I don't know. Should I have talked to the mom first? Ah yes, OP is the monster for calling CPS on Christmas, says the mom who made her kids sleep outside in the cold on Christmas. But I don't blame OP for not talking to the mom first. I think it's already been established by the mom's past behavior that if OP did try to talk to her, it just wouldn't really do much. You did what you had to do, OP. It's certainly better than just turning a blind eye, that's for sure. Entitled Old Hag at Oppenheimer. Since tickets for Oppenheimer were incredibly hard to get in my area for some reason, I ended up having to see this movie by myself at 9:30 p.m. on a Saturday night. Not incredibly convenient for me, but I really wanted to see it, and at least at that hour there wouldn't be too many kids. So I showed up, grabbed some Skittles and a soda, and go sit down. A few minutes into the previews, Karen shows up, walks to what is apparently her seat, decides she doesn't like that one and walks back to the aisle, and starts complaining at the person sitting about 3 seats to my left that she should have that seat. This is one of those theaters with the snazzy reclining seats, and enough room that people don't have to stand up to let you through. The person to my right starts filming her, and I sit up to watch. She's on a tear about how this guy needs to give her the premium seat that he reserved in advance. He needs to respect his elders. He needs to show respect to women. He needs to stop using cancel culture on her just because she's white. It should be noted that he was too. He needs to stop being a lazy entitled millennial. The reason she gave that this guy needs to give up his seat? She had to go through atom bomb drills in elementary school, so she deserves to have a good view for this movie. I grab my phone and call the theater. The person on the other end of the line can hear her. Says, let me guess, Theater 4? Security will be there in a second. You're our 5th call. They show up, escort her out of the theater, and the rest of us watch the movie in peace. Alright, that's going to be all for today. Thank you for watching, guys. Be sure to subscribe for more. Take care, and I'll see you next time.